Hey, everybody.
Hey.
Hi.
What an artificial, awkward way to make new friends.
I know. We were talking to your friends over there, but you're our new friends.
Leave them behind.
This is the
Now
cool
you got
kids
this.
table, right?
Yeah, this is the table.
That's right. And we got to go to the jocks after this.
So how do you feel with this new show in a new way to watch TV?
Well, working with Netflix has been a dream, in part because they've been enthusiastic about every single thing we mentioned, and they're equally enthusiastic when we change our minds and go the other way. It's incredible. Both the idea of telling stories in a new way, having 10 episodes in which to tell a story, and having more time and no commercials. It's just
We could never tell this type of story on Fox or any regular network. You just couldn't. And it's also the wonderful thing too is like because we don't have commercials, you're following the story. You're not interrupted by a razor blade or a Chevy commercial. Or soap.
Selling soap.
Yeah.
and we don't have to. When you come back from a commercial, you have to remind the audience and repeat yourself, and we don't have that.
Yeah, and that's true with storytelling too. It's such a sitcom format. It's like that you reset at the end of every episode, and we don't do that because we're telling one long story. There's lots of individual stories, but so you don't. It was as a writer, it's really annoying that you have to reset at the end and reset in the beginning, and instead we keep going, and our characters keep going and growing, and that's a lot more fun for us to write.
And also, we have this amazing staff of writers and animators who are younger than us, and so they like some of the stuff we like, but our references are generally a little older.
This is very intentional because we're old farts, and there's half the writing staff is people like me who are 50 or older, and the other half is 30 and under. And it was very intentional because I have this theory, and I'll be very quick about it, is that the young comedy writers, because I worked on the show Gravity Falls, and it was amazing. I was the old guy on it. Everyone else was in their 20s, and they're so much funnier than I am, and also so much better with storytelling and embracing emotions. And I think that there's a younger set of writers and animators too, I think, who grew up on The Simpsons and shows like that in South Park. So they're already more evolved than us. They had a base, I grew up on Scooby-Doo, which sucks. And it's
How dare you?
So
what?
But it sucks in a good
the
way.
truth comes out. Geez.
But I didn't have it's so I feel like the younger writers and animators are they've evolved beyond us, so it really helps to have this combination of old guys who can go well, you see, Johnny Carson was this guy who told jokes on TV, and then they can tell us more.
So I do have to say, whenever we start talking about the Three Stooges, the women writers get up and walk out of the room.
That's not an age thing.
Yeah. That's maybe a gender thing.
I had to explain to someone the other day who Red Fox was, and I was just like, how do you not know who Red Fox is? Red Fox, come on.
For the benefit of the transcribers and the staff of Scooby-Doo, can you guys introduce yourselves?
I'm Matt Groening.
I'm John Smith. No, I'm Josh Weinstein. Come at me, Scooby-Doo.
I'm John DiMaggo, and I would have gotten away with it if it hadn't been for you meddling kids.
What is the secret to impress your fans that has followed you for many years in different projects with different stories? How do you find the right story for keep impressing this audience that loves you?
The secret is, honestly, we try to make each other laugh. And the fun thing is the writers are trying to make each other laugh when we're writing the show. We try to have designs that have some kind of wit and fun to them. And then our favorite thing is when we have our table read, where we bring the script for the first time and sit down with the actors and they perform it. And when you can make John DiMaggo laugh at somebody else's joke, it's heaven.
Oh, that was
in fact,
that
his
was
laugh.
That was my goal on
Futurama,
is to make you laugh.
His laugh is so. good that we actually have a horse that gets possessed, a laughing horse, that it's only his laugh, and it's his real laugh.
Yeah, we discussed what would a laughing horse sound like, and we just said, let's just go with John's real laugh. So
No, but I mean, there's another thing with that. I mean, you know, we're just trying to, as the actors, we're just trying to impress the writers. They hand us this gold. And we just got, I mean, we got to buff it, we got to melt it, we got to make it into statues, you know? So we're just, it's just this beautiful mind meld when you get down to it, when you're doing an animated show. You know, there's so many parts have to fit together, and when they do, it's magic. It's great. Like the Futurama was a well-oiled machine out of the gate, and this show was even that tenfold, because of just the experience of everybody and Matt, you know, knowing how it works and how you put it down so that you can get it out there and make it work right.
I think that's really true, because it feels like this show starts with the Futurama family of you guys and some writers and stuff, and then we bring more people into the family, and Rough Draft too, and it's just like people just like really get along.
Yeah, the familiarity really nice. is key, and knowing, already having the idea of, you know, the jokes that are going to come out, how we all tell those jokes, you know, and how we've been telling those jokes in the past, and how we keep, you know, just it's just.
But it's also like we'll start writing to you guys, like we'll know, like, oh, this will be how John would tell this joke,
exactly,
or how Abby would say it, and that sort of thing.
Exactly.
So like,
but we all start to service each other. Yeah. Like it's really this great exchange. It's really awesome.
And I suppose you have more freedom for the jokes, for talk about another topics without any censor and that kind of thing.
Well, yeah, there's certainly no censorship at all. No, there isn't any. In fact, though, when we originally talked about this, we thought maybe we'll go a little more risque, a little dirtier, and we wrote a few jokes that way, and we said, no, this doesn't feel right.
There was actually an early draft of a script where a character said shit, and it didn't feel right. And so, like, I think there's a thing of like us being allowed we can talk about more adult topics and things like that, but there's like a smart way to do it as opposed to like a crass way, and that's something like we learned along the way.
Patton Oswalt has a great joke about how you can just say something really filthy on stage, and that's like, okay, but if you make it, clean filth is so much creepier and funnier than regular straight up filth. Like the way, it's kind of like if you're teaching kids how to curse, you have to be like, okay, you can't say the F word. You have to come up with 20 other ways, clean ways to say the F word before you earn the right to say the F word. And if you do that creatively, that kid is going to come up with crazy stuff. And that's what happens
wait,
here.
What school do you teach at?
Yeah, exactly. No, but like really, like they had the opportunity to be filthy, to throw all caution to the wind. And they didn't, because they didn't have to. Those are easy jokes. Those are easy cakewalk jokes to write. It's much more sophisticated to take moments and sure, they're risque joke, sure, but take the long way. Take the long way to tell that joke. Matt's always done that. That's what makes it funny, you know, and that's what makes it work so well. You know, it's
more fun to let the viewers put it together in their head.
Yeah.
And go like, oh, that's going on, as opposed to just showing it. And then also, kids, and this was the same on Simpsons and Futurama too, is like there are jokes that will go over kids' heads. Just like I'm sure there were jokes in Bugs Bunny that went way over my head, or jokes about Adlai Stevenson or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just like went over my head. But adults will get it. So I think we'd want to have kind of both ways. So that this is more adult.
Can you talk a little bit about the references that you said before, with this clash of generations of young animators and yourself?
It's making it sound like a fight to the death.
No, they're just different references. For instance, when I was younger in the 1980s, I didn't watch TV, so almost all television that references 1980s TV culture, I don't get, because that decade I was going out and going to clubs. So there's that, and then I assume that goes on further and further. Right now, there's so much television that it's impossible for everybody to watch. So I don't think there's a shared culture, because not everybody's watching everything.
But there's also a thing of the way the characters speak, because like I'm from Generation X, so I tend to go things suck and use that word a lot. But like the younger writers, they're much more enthusiastic, and so a lot of times it's like with like writing with Bean and stuff. Like our writers Jenny and Em are kind of masters at writing Bean dialogue because they're young and they really get her. And so it's like I think we count on the younger writers just to make sure that we're not coming across as old farts going like, "Hey gang, how is it going?" So it just feels more real, and we count on the younger writers a lot for things like that.
For contemporary slang.
How long was the concept in your mind before putting it down on paper?
I started a sketchbook, I don't know, a long time ago, 8 years ago, something like that. Mm-hmm. I just wrote down every fantasy cliche and trope and reference. There are 25 different kinds of short-statured mythical creatures, from dwarves, elves, ogres, trolls, nymphs, imps, leprechauns, munchkins, on and on and on and on.
Do you draw every day?
I do. And here are our characters. I do this at breakfast. Okay, this is Princess Bean. And now you would say, is she princess? Yes, you can tell by the crown. Yes, by the crown. Right? Okay, of course. But this is not Cinderella. This is not Sleeping Beauty. This is not even Waking Beauty. She's an unusual type, and we did that on purpose. We're just like, we're going to do the opposite of what you expect. So it's not, although I think she's beautiful and I have a crush on her, I think she's not what you expect. This is Elfo. Elfo is based on the very first character I ever drew in this style in the 5th grade, and he looked almost exactly like that without the elf hat. When we drew him first, and we wanted him to have romantic feelings towards Bean and towards other characters in the show, but he looked like a little kid. And so that's why we gave him sideburns, so you can tell that.
And that's also why Nat Faxon's voice is so great. It's because like in a typical cartoon, it'd be like, "Hi, I'm an elf," and it's not. It's like Nat has like a really adult, kind of almost deep voice that he makes a little higher for Elfo, but it's really real, and that's like another thing. Cool.
And this is a character that I completely designed independently of the show. Obviously, it's in a completely different style. This is Lucy, Bean's personal demon. And it's this. I think this is going to be a breakout tattoo.
Somebody already the very first
somebody already did
Disenchantment tattoo. I think a woman in Colombia got.
Wow, there you go. See?
Got a Lucy.
And this is played by Eric Andre from the Eric Andre Show. We see a total wild man, and he's fantastic. He's just great. And then we come to John DiMaggo as King Zog.
What are you trying to make a jerk out of me?
So King Zog, I would say in John's King, I hear a little bit of Wallace Beery. I hear a little bit of Archie Bunker from All in the Family.
Eddie Barth from the Miller Lite television commercials. Miller Lite with a third less calorie than your regular beer. Remember that guy? He did a ton of commercials in the 70s, and that guy was just always the quintessential New York voice.
And then there's
Oh, wait, can I say one thing? That's what I love too, is like these, in a typical fantasy cartoon, they would all have these grand English voices. But it's like the King's clearly from New Jersey.
Yeah,
and
no,
I like the mix of it.
That's the thing. I mean,
Well, and partly inspired by Red, the hapless victim of the Tube Bar phone call tapes, which you can find online. We even quote him. So it's pretty good.
Well, you try to make a jerk out of me. It's just see, and I would do impressions. Me and Billy would do impressions during Futurama, we would do this. Like, when the tapes weren't rolling, we would just go in and do these outtakes, but these weren't outtakes. This band got hired to play in Jersey City in the 70s at this bar called the Tube Bar. They got ripped off, so they prank phone called the owner of the place, Red.
That's the original prank calls to Mo are based on that.
Yeah, exactly. So the Mo Bard exchange is, kind of based on these phone calls, but they would call up and they would get this guy so riled up, and then he would curse like a sailor. Oh my God. It's the funniest thing. So I would do that. He would crack up, I would crack up, but we'd just start laughing. And I auditioned for the role, and I had some sort of, very proper king sort of thing, I'm King Song, and so did that, and I get the part, and I'm like, yeah, he's like, and they're like, listen, Matt wants to talk to you, Matt and Josh want to talk to you before the table read. And I was like, okay, sure, all right. And I come in, I'm like, yeah, so what's up? And he's just like, just do Red, that's it. Just do Red. And I was like, oh, yeah. So that's
You do use that fancy voice as the Scrivener, though.
I do.
Really
Yes,
good.
yes, that's right. I was able to pull that one out and use it, but yeah, he's, Beanie. Come on, Bean. He's just that guy, and he's just, bring me a cow. Just that kind of guy.
We have time for one more question.
Oh, can you talk a little bit about creating Bean as a character and sort of how Abby interplayed with that creation?
Girl power.
Yeah, Josh and I sat down and we laid out the world, and we worked on this for a really long time, and it became quite clear that Bean was the center of the show, and that Elfo, her elf companion, and Lucy, the personal demons, basically completed her. And she's the most interesting character that we came up with for a long time, because she had so many flaws, and she's still lovable.
And it's also that the idea, and based in a lot of history, not England obviously, where women princesses would grow up in a patriarchal kingdom and never be allowed to rule, even though she's clearly much more together and smarter than her younger brother, half-brother Derek. She will never be able to rule. And so it's a much more interesting conundrum for us. But what it also did is that transposed into being her age, 19 and 20, because a lot of this is about going into the world for the first time. And like, we poured a lot of Bean. There's a lot of friends that I had when we were 19, 20, female and male, like where we drank too much, but we didn't know what we were going to do in life, but we knew we didn't. It was like adults telling us what we were going to do. So a lot of it is finding your way in the world, and especially as a woman in this world, we think it's like there's so much more interesting stories to tell that way than if we just went with boring.
And Abby took what we considered very feminist lines and made us realize how mild we were. She kicked it into another level. She's fantastic.
There's a lot of times,
and I would say that's true of all of our actors. In this case, because we have more time to play with in telling a story than a regular network animated show, that everybody ad-libbed, and we use some great ad-libs, including from John. Really good stuff.
But yeah, we really count on these guys and like Abby to kick it up and kind of make it real, because like she'll say, I don't know that Bean would say this, she might say it like that. And it's also important that we have a number of female writers as well. That's because it's like I'm a fat 50-year-old white guy, and it's like I like to think like when we wrote for The Simpsons, most of the writers identified with Lisa, even though if we thought we were Bart, we were more like Lisa, and now I'm like Homer. But it's like there's only so much I can do, even though I think I'm a sensitive guy, and it's like that's why we're proud that we've got a number of awesome women on staff who also bring. And it's not just for all the characters, but that's what was important to us too when we were assembling the staff.
Cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt will go back. Very good.
Thank you.
Yes.